I know I've got a lot of atheist followers, so if you have any disagreements here, please feel free to share. I love conversation and dialogue. I've been watching a lot of ghost videos recently, and it had been, up until recently, a guilty pleasure of mine because I was adamantly opposed to the idea of ghosts existing. I was watching them more because I like Hound of the Baskervilles, and I was trying to figure out how the videos were faked. A lot of so-called ghost videos are hoaxes, or they're shadows, or reflections of light. Maybe all of them are. But I always questioned myself. I thought if it were possible for ghosts to exist, the argument that they don't is very strong. We are products of our brain, and our brain rots. When we get brain damage, we are less than what we were. Doesn't that prove ghosts don't exist? What would be the purpose of a soul anyhow? What's wrong with a resurrection? The Bible doesn't even mention souls to my knowledge. It talks about a new heaven and a new earth. I should note I believe in God, although I'm not a Christian. Socrates makes sense to me. An infinite regress of time and space is impossible. Therefore, something outside of time and space must exist, and this thing that created everything, if it is the prime mover, must be self-aware to move itself. Now, if God exists outside of time and space, it would make sense that some part of ourselves is metaphysical, if there is any intention that we are to, at some point, merge with or reconcile with God. It would make sense, then, that ghosts exist. If they are here and have been captured on camera, I have no idea. A slight breeze seems to be able to explain most ghost experiences. Also, how would the metaphysical and physical react to one another? It's not impossible, I suppose, that could come into contact. I have to read more on physics. A natural question atheists and skeptics ask is how something non-physical can even exist. What would it look like? The question never bothered me too much. After all, as physical beings, it's only natural we wouldn't be able to imagine something beyond our experiences. Try explaining color to a man born blind or music to a person born deaf. And there are actually videos online of people trying to do that, and it's very interesting. Now, what's interesting about ghosts that we should grapple with is in the Christian cosmology, because when Jesus supposedly rose from the dead, he was neither physical nor metaphysical. He had flesh, but was also apparently able to walk through walls, if I recall the story correctly. I'm way too lazy to look it up. I do wonder when reconciliation happens, if we do reconcile, if it'll be a complete absorption, or if we'll retain any sense of our former selves. I hope it's the latter. A complete absorption sounds like something out of a horror movie. The Thing. I'm more inclined to believe we'll continue to grow and mature like Dante's imagining of paradise. It's also something I'd suggest to those creating science fiction movies. You know, one of the more common stories in science fiction is the notion that in our race to improve ourselves through technology, we will destroy ourselves. Either we'll be like cyborgs from Star Trek, or robots will become self-aware and start to destroy us. But a third possibility is that technology will improve our physical and mental abilities without destroying our former selves. You, as an adult, are much stronger and smarter than you were as a child, and yet you wouldn't say that you died as a child. You weren't destroyed during puberty. Nobody, to my knowledge, describes puberty as a process of death. Rather, it's of new beginnings. It's a frightful process initially, but then new horizons are opened. This is how I imagine death and the afterlife. Is God even real? During my high school years, as a lot of people grapple with whether God exists or not, I was wondering if God was good. I concluded that God has no desires or needs, since she was initially the only thing that existed. And it didn't make sense that she would have any intention of hurting us. Evil stems from two sources. It stems from greed and ignorance. People commit evil because it gives them a sense of power, or it gets them something they want. But what could God want? God is metaphysical. She has no physical needs, and she created everything. So she needs no sense of power. She already has all the power she could ever want. Our creation could only stem from the one thing God lacks, which is companionship. God being the only thing in existence, the only thing God lacked was some other being to share existence with. Now, on what basis does this relationship exist? There are several types of relationships. Some are based on sex, others on servitude, others on friendship. Friendship is the only thing that makes sense. God, being the original, doesn't require sex, nor does she require our service, since that would imply she needs something. But as we exist now, we are merely children, since we are so imperfect, and therefore I conclude there must be a lengthy process in our development, and there is beauty and grandeur in developing. Stasis is almost the very definition of boredom, and it's that experience of growth which a new knowledge can come about. Knowledge of pain, and therefore knowledge of satisfaction and contentment. Why does suffering exist? Because in that holistic existence, we can fully know things we otherwise wouldn't. We were talking about a blind man trying to understand color, experiential knowledge. Now, I'm a pantheist, and I would argue God experiences our pain. Through us, God experiences imperfection. We are lesser forms of God. It's another thing God wouldn't have as a perfect, immobile being.